I used to self-sabotage my own speeches. After doing many at Toastmasters, I'd often get feedback saying, "Staff, you need to use the power of the pause. Staff, you need to pause more." And I didn't realise I was self-sabotaging my speeches because I wasn't getting the audience to think about what I wanted them to think about. And you gotta think, why do you speak anyway? You speak to get them to think, feel, or do something after, and if you can't get them to digest what you are saying, you can't sell your message. And it took me quite a while to get over this. And that's why in this video, I'm gonna go through why you need to pause, when you need to pause, and how you need to pause. So you don't need to face this problem for as long as I did. Let's go through the first one. Why do we need to pause? Well, you need to think. There's two reasons why you pause. Number one, it's so you can think about what you're saying. But we're not really going through that one in this video. Number two is to get them to think about what you're saying. You pause when you have something important to say. When you want them to think, want them to reflect on their own situation, that is when you pause. Because you don't want to tell them what to think, you want to guide them to think in that way. Because then they've made a choice and they can reflect on their own situation. And they can only do that when you pause. You think, when I edit these videos, I take quite a lot of the pauses out because it's YouTube. It's a lot quicker. But when you're doing your speeches, this is when you want to be comfortable with this silence, because it's in the silence that people truly reflect. When you don't include the silence, people can't reflect on their own situation, because people don't care about your story or what you've got to say. They care if what you are saying is going to help them. It's always what's in it for me. If I'm just doing this video for the sake of doing this video and not showing you how you can implement the pause, you would not be interested one bit. And that is why you need to pause, to get them to reflect on their own situation. And that moves me on to when. When should you pause? Well, if you want them to reflect on a certain situation, it's when you have something important to say. I'm going to go through some examples later on in this video, but whenever you have something that you really want them to digest, that is when you pause. If a date is really important to you, you're going to pause then. If you're talking about creatine and you want to emphasize the main benefits creatine has, that is when you are going to pause. When you have anything important to say or you want them to reflect, that is the moment that you pause. And I'm going to show you how you are going to plan it into your speech, because I got this feedback. So I tried it the next speech, but I thought I was pausing, but really I was not pausing. In my head, it felt a lot longer than it actually was. And the way that you are going to do this and improve on that is by planning your pauses. And I started singing lessons, and she told me about my breathing. And she said, well, singers, they plan when they're going to breathe. And I thought, what? They plan when they're breathing? And she said, yeah, they plan when they're breathing so they can breathe at the right times whilst they are singing so they don't sound breathy. And I thought, I can do that with my pauses. I can plan when I pause. And this is how you're going to do it. We have two types of pauses. We have the normal pause, which is here, and we have the dramatic pause, which is here. Now, I don't know the proper terminology, but that's the names we're going with today. The normal pause, it's a pause from 1 to 3 seconds. A dramatic pause, 3 seconds and above. That means if you have something important, you're going to use the normal pause. If you have something really important, you're going to use the dramatic pause. That is the terminology, that is the rules. Now, if we go through the introduction of one of my keynotes, you're going to mark it in. For example, in 2017, I was a full-time student. I'm going to pause then. I'm going to put 1/, but I wanted to go full-time in MMA, 1/. The reason that I've decided to pause there, I was a full-time student. I want them to process, I was a student, so I'm going to pause. But I wanted to go full-time in MMA. I want them to process, I'm currently a student, but I don't want to do it anymore. I want to be a fighter. That is why I pause. That was my dream. That's all I wanted, to be a UFC champion. Pause again. And to hear them shout on the mic, and the 145-pound champion of the world, Stafford Swainston. Dramatic pause after that. I want them to reflect on the whole situation of where I am now and where I want to be. Raise your hand if you've ever had a dream. Dramatic pause. I want them to reflect on their own situation, to think, what's my dream? Everyone has a dream. Deep down, even if they don't want to admit it, everyone has a dream. Good. Normal pause. Then you'll understand this. Dramatic pause. They're going to be thinking, what's this? I'm going to wait, take my time, and then say, every dream comes with a choice. I just want them to reflect on their own situation. I want them to think of internal questions. Did I go for my dream? What's holding me back from my dream? What were the choices when it came to pursuing my dream or not pursuing my dream? That is what I want them to think. If I don't give them time to think, they won't. If I don't give them time to digest, they won't. That is why I'm using a dramatic pause there. That is enough for me showing you how to use that system to plan your pauses. But it's only by planning your pauses that you will start to put them in. Because now you're not thinking, where do I pause? You now know. You've got a plan. You can look at your script and you can see, all right, I need to pause there. And the reason I'm pausing here is to make them reflect, make them digest it. But how do you improve this? Because at Toastmasters, after doing a couple speeches, I thought, I'm really picking up this pause. What did I get? The same feedback. Staff, you need to use the power of the pause. And I thought, I have used the power of the pause, but because I didn't do this step and I didn't really do it properly, I didn't realize. You need to record yourself because in the moment, it will feel like you've paused for a long period of time. Only until you watch yourself back and realize, I've only paused for 1 second here. That was meant to be a dramatic pause. And it's only by filming yourself that you will build the awareness to realize, okay, I didn't pause that long there. Next time, I need to pause longer. You record, you review, and you repeat the process. And that is how you will build your awareness when it comes to including these pauses and pausing for the right amount of time. And once you do that, you won't need to plan these pauses. You can just put them into your speech. When you're speaking at meetings, with your friends, when you're playing tennis, anything, when you are speaking in any sort of situation, you will be able to pause naturally in certain points because you know what are the important things. Once you know the important bits that you are trying to highlight, that is where you will pause. You will get them to think, and then it will be natural. Then you won't need to plan putting pauses into your speeches. It will just happen. And if you want to learn how to use these pauses whilst creating an influential presentation completely for free, check out the link below. And that will direct you. You'll get this post and you also will get 11 days of emails to support you in creating that presentation. And although using your pause is very, very important, if you don't know how to create any sort of contrast, that is pointless. That's why you should probably watch this video.